What's up, Raptors fans? Welcome to the Warriors Report. It's time to talk about the Raptors after they were eliminated by the 76ers in 6 games. Yes, it pains me to say that. The Raptors are officially out of the playoffs, but the Raptors, did they make a mistake by doing this thing? And I will break that thing down in just a moment. So if you're ready to watch this video, make sure to hit the like button. It does help get this video out a lot more. And if you want to hit the subscribe button as well, that'd be very much appreciated. All right, guys. So let's talk about the Raptors because heading into this season, everyone keeps talking about these 6'8", 6'9" guys. And on paper, it looks spectacular. I was a little bit skeptical coming into this season regarding having no center on the roster. I wasn't opposed to the idea of having these switchable defenders. I thought it was a great idea considering the Celtics absolutely abused Marc Gasol. And then we tried signing a center in Aaron Baines and Alex Len, and obviously that did not work out. But I thought at the very least, Masai Ujiri should have, at the very least, signed one center in case. I have been screaming this the entire season. If we run into someone like Joel Embiid in the playoffs, and yes, it happened, and the Raptors defense looked absolutely terrible. Now, I have a lot of questions surrounding not only Masai Ujiri and his roster construction, but also Nick Nurse as well. So let's talk about Nick Nurse very quickly because we always talk about Nick Nurse and Doc Rivers and how Nick Nurse was going to run circles around Doc Rivers. I was not the only YouTuber to say that. Pretty much even 76ers fans were saying that, you know what, they're worried about that matchup because Nick Nurse is a genius. Now, he is a genius. I absolutely understand that. But there's just a lot of questions as to what was going on in this series. We're supposed to talk about the Raptors being this spectacular defensive team, yet they allowed the 76ers in 2 games this series to score 130 plus points. And the 76ers average 111.5 points during the series versus the Raptors, and they only average 109 points during the regular season. Normally, teams are supposed to average less points during the playoffs because the defense is tightened, and I just don't understand where that genius of Nick Nurse was. Now, I know we could have been swept, and Nick Nurse definitely did a good job of getting the Raptors back into this series, but just in terms of some of the halftimes we saw, the halftime adjustments we saw from the 76ers during this series was a lot better than the Raptors. Let's not kid ourselves. The series was very close in terms of obviously the Raptors winning those 2 games, but even the last game, game 6, we saw here, the 76ers and the Raptors were very close, and it seemed like it's going to be a very close game, yet the second half rolls around and the Raptors get absolutely blown. And the reason I question Nick Nurse is because the Raptors shot 29% from the three-point line. He chose to play Malachi Flynn, who, by the way, I absolutely love, but we did not see Armani Brooks playing one quality minute during this series, which was really questionable for me because he was supposed to be our last roster spot, and we signed him because he provides shooting. Yet the Raptors did not play him 1 minute. It was just a lot of confusing decision-making from Nick Nurse. Again, I'm not questioning him. He is a genius. He sure is in terms of what he's able to do with the Raptors. And obviously, we lost the series. It is what it is. The blame doesn't strictly go on Nick Nurse, but I just don't understand how you fill out your last roster spot with a shooting guard when you really could have needed a center. And I understand that the buyout market didn't have exactly a lot of centers that fill the Raptors' need, but the free agent market wasn't that great either. Now, I understand that. But in terms of just the Raptors not signing a legitimate center was the big question I had coming into the season. I still had my doubts coming into the playoffs because the Raptors looked spectacular during the regular season in terms of having that small ball lineup of 6'8", 6'9" guys. I always said this, Joel Embiid, if we face him in the playoffs, who is going to stop him? Now, I understand that having a 7-foot center does not guarantee that you will slow down Joel Embiid because just how talented he is and how he's able to shoot three-point shots. He's able to dribble the ball. He's able to obviously shoot fadeaway shots as well. But I think just signing that 7-foot center would have prevented the Raptors from continuously throwing 3 guys at Joel Embiid, which just freed up a lot of space for the 76ers shooters and Tobias Harris and Danny Green, obviously, who was going off in game 6 as well. But I think it's just frustrating in the sense that even if we signed a decent defender as a 7-foot center, I think Nick Nurse has the ability to really just mold him into a good defender and just work him into our system. And it really would have benefited the Raptors had the Raptors signed a 7-foot center. But those weren't the only questions. As I mentioned, the Raptors shot 29% from the three-point line this series. That was terrible. But let's take into consideration that the only rotational player off the bench for the Raptors that can shoot the three-point ball decently is Chris Boucher. So Masai Ujiri, I absolutely understand that this wasn't a championship or bust season, but where were the shooters off the bench? How many second-round picks are we going to accumulate? I don't understand that. We have Delano Banton, we have David Johnson, Justin Champagnie, Malachi Flynn are just some of the 4 players that are going to need minutes over the next few years. You can only put so many second round picks on your roster in terms of there's only limited roster spots. You can only keep drafting so many second round draft guys, and very few of them even turn out to be able to play consistently good minutes. So, I mean, we could have traded for shooters. We could have traded for centers. I know it's very easier said than done, but it just seems like there wasn't a lot of effort from Masai Ujiri and management in terms of getting the team some shooters, getting at least one center, which I have been screaming about the entire season. And it showed. It showed in this series because the Raptors got out rebounded every single game during the series. And you can guess the only two games we didn't get out rebounded, the Raptors ended up winning that game. So winning those two games. So obviously rebounding was a big issue for the Raptors, not only because of Joel Embiid, but just because the Raptors just were not rebounding the ball well. And it would have really benefited the Raptors to have a defensive rebounder, a bigger body, not even in terms of having a 7-foot center, but just someone out there who weighs more than 232 pounds, Cam Birch. It's just so frustrating to see the Raptors, from a Raptors point of view, to see three bodies consistently being thrown at Joel Embiid and all of the other players just being open for a three-point shot. So it's really frustrating that the Raptors roster construction was the way it was. Now, I know people will say, well, you should be happy because the Raptors coming into the season weren't even expected to make the playoffs and not even go as far as they did. But personally, I had the Raptors making the fifth spot. Anyone who has been following this channel for a while, you watch my videos. Before the season started, I said the Raptors are going to make the fifth spot in the Eastern Conference. A lot of people laughed and said, you're just being a homer, you're being overly optimistic, but the talent was there. So why would you not try to fill out the holes in this roster? That's just some of the questions I had regarding our management. I just failed to understand some of the pieces that were put there. And it just didn't make sense to me why this team didn't have shooters, why we didn't have a 7-foot center. It's just a lot of question marks around this roster. And I'm sure Masai Ujiri will work on them. Now, this is not to question Masai Ujiri. He's obviously had a spectacular run with the Raptors. He's made the playoffs every single season but one season ever since he's taken over. But I just think there's certain needs the Raptors clearly had. Now, I understand there wasn't a championship or bust season. Personally, I had really high expectations for the Raptors this season. Obviously, being led by Pascal and Fred was huge. But just in terms of just what the Raptors could have done in this playoffs as well, there's a lot of question marks. But again, I don't want to keep ranting too much. I do want to ask you guys for your thoughts. What do you think the Raptors need to do going into this offseason? Was it sign a 7-foot center? Is it sign some shooters to provide some shooting off the bench? And obviously Nick Nurse as well. There's some questions surrounding him in terms of how much he just burnt out our starters playing 40 minutes. And I know he did that because he was trying to prepare the guys for playoffs minutes, the intensity, but you do that for limited games. You don't do that in the middle of the season running 7-man, 8-man rotations for 20 games or so. Obviously, that proved very, very critical for the Raptors because Fred VanVleet ended up injuring his knee, and he's now going to require surgery during the offseason. So again, I think Nick Nurse needs to learn to play the guys a little bit more. I understand his frustration, and people will say, well, our bench was terrible. You can't say the bench is terrible when they get 2 minutes to play and they get yanked for making one mistake. You need to play, especially, I've been very big on Malachi Flynn, but you need to let the guy play a few minutes. And it just seemed like Nick Nurse wasn't having it for whatever reason. But anyways, guys, I'm done ranting. I do want to hear from you guys. What do you think the Raptors need to improve on heading into this offseason? I don't have a trivia question for you guys today. I'm just ranting onto this video. It's a very frustrating loss. I'm still angry that we lost game 6. There's obviously a lot of holes in this roster, but I do want to hear from you guys. And for anyone who wants a shout out, you can just let me know in the comment section. I will give a shout out in my next video. So that will be it for today's video, guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.